Hi, Ellen here with another edition of Ask the Author. Today I have a question from Shannon in Massachusetts who wants to know, I recently wrote my first novel and several people have told me my dialogue is kind of stiff. Can you give me any pointers? I can give you some pointers. Of course, it's a little bit difficult to assess exactly what your needs are since I haven't read your work. However, I will tell you what a lot of amateurs seem to do with dialogue that makes it a little stiff, and that is that they put exposition within the dialogue to try to explain what's happening in the story. Don't do this. You're much better off putting the exposition within the narrative and letting the people speak the way people normally speak. The problem I've found very often is that it comes down to people hearing that they're supposed to show and not tell, and they don't quite understand what this means. I do think that's one of the most misunderstood phrases in writing. And people think that when they hear show, don't tell, it means don't put any exposition at all in the narrative, cram it into the dialogue, and that's showing and that's not telling. And that's not really not at all what show, don't tell means. Show, don't tell means, for instance, demonstrate how a character feels rather than say it. In other words, you don't have to say Joe is angry, but you can have Joe slam the door. So you're showing and not telling, and that's what that means. As far as exposition is concerned, it has to go in the narrative because you have to tell the story. So don't take something like, I just quickly wrote out a little example here, if I can find it. Okay. Don't say something like, hi Regina, Lewis said, you look great. The last time I saw you was right after you had that terrible car accident that paralyzed your sister. Obviously, people don't speak like that. If there's an assumption that the person they're speaking to already knows something, they're not going to say it. And it sounds unnatural, and it's going to come off as stilted and stiff. And instead, you could replace that with something like, you look great, Lewis said. He hadn't seen Regina since the car accident that left her sister paralyzed. Very easy. It's not the kind of thing you have to overthink. Put the exposition right in the narrative. Don't stick it into the dialogue. That's one thing. What other reasons could there be for the dialogue sounding stiff? One of the things that I advise people to do is to read back the dialogue and cut. You know, in real conversations, and you'll notice that when you're listening to me just record this, people do say well, and use all those kind of stalling words quite a bit. And it might seem very natural to write that way when you write in the dialogue, because you hear it. You actually hear people talking in your head, and you write that down. It slows down the story, it slows down the pace, it's completely unnecessary. If you take out all those sort of stalling words, those interjections, the dialogue will become much more dynamic, and I promise you won't sound any less realistic, and it'll work better. The story will flow a lot better. Another little dialogue tip I'm going to give you, here's a good one. In real life, people often don't answer a yes or no question with a yes or a no. It's natural to think that someone is going to precede their explanation of an answer, yes, yada yada, or no, yada yada. Go back through, see where there's a yes or no response in your dialogue, preceded by an explanation, and see if you can take out the yes or the no, and if it still makes sense, leave it like that. It's going to sound a lot more natural, and it'll flow better too. I think I just had one more little point I wanted to make about this. I want to say one of my favorite things to say about dialogue is don't be afraid of the S word. By that I mean the word said. That's another mistake that amateurs make, is that they try to find a million and one synonyms for said, uttered, muttered, commented, stated, yada yada yada. Please, whatever you do, do not do this. It does the exact opposite of what you want it to do. In other words, the word said becomes invisible to the reader, but all those other words are a very, very self-conscious way to write, and you're much better off leaving it off altogether. You can always, especially if the dialogue is just between two characters, you can sometimes just not have any dialogue tag at all. Be careful. Don't do more than 2 or 3 lines like this, because I'm sure you've experienced that as a reader where you lose track of who's speaking. So just be careful you don't go overboard with that. But another great little substitution that you can do, if you find that you're really using too many said all over the page, substitute a little bit, a line of action. Have the character just pick up a cup of coffee and then say something, or take a seat or stand up or whatever it is. Just a little piece of action right before or right after the line of dialogue, and then the reader knows who's speaking. Hope I didn't go too far off topic answering your questions, Shannon. And thanks for tuning in today. And again, I'd love to get more of your questions. Thanks, and have a good day. Bye.